What happens when the truth is darker than death? In San Cristobal de las Casas, an iconic city known for its cobblestone alleys and colonial architecture, a funeral that seemed ordinary turns into a profound mystery, triggering a search for justice that could cost a man everything and change the fate of an entire community. In the small, traditional San Cristobal, where secrets seem to hide within the walls of churches and whispers echo through the alleys, the death of Isabella, a woman admired for her social causes and activism, brought a climate of desolation and suspicion. The funeral, which should have been a moment of farewell, quickly becomes a scene of tension when Pirata, Isabella's loyal dog, begins to bark desperately, drawing the attention of everyone present and directing their gazes toward the coffin. The strange behavior of Father Ignacio, a close friend of the deceased and the one in charge of the ceremony, raises even more suspicions as he shows inexplicable nervousness while trying to control the dog. Among the attendees, Mateo, an investigative journalist who sought refuge in San Cristobal after a tumultuous past in the capital, feels that something is not right. He had developed a special connection with Isabella, and her death deeply affects him. Observing Pirata's restlessness and the evident discomfort of the priest, Mateo begins to suspect that Isabella's death hides dark secrets that go beyond a simple tragedy. A strong sense of justice drives him to uncover what really happened. As Mateo delves into the investigation, he finds compromising clues in Isabella's notes, revealing a world of corruption and betrayal involving the local church. The community that he has begun to call home harbors a dark secret, and what began as mourning transforms into a struggle for the truth. With the help of Pirata, who seems to guide him with his intuition, Mateo realizes that the web of lies and secrets threatens to unravel everything around him. Mateo's challenges are not just external, but also internal. Terrified by a past of failures and regrets, he faces his own insecurities, struggling to redeem himself and seek justice for Isabella. With every step, he encounters moral dilemmas that make him reflect on what truly matters in life, and the interactions with the city's inhabitants, ranging from distrust to solidarity, add layers of tension and emotion to his quest. As the investigation progresses, Mateo discovers that he is not just hunting a criminal, he is confronting a corrupt system that has infiltrated the city. The once welcoming atmosphere turns into a battlefield, where each new clue reveals more secrets and dangers. The unusual friendship that develops between Mateo and Pirata becomes a symbol of loyalty and courage in the face of adversity as they navigate the darkness together in search of the truth. Mateo is not only seeking justice for Isabella, but also an opportunity for rebuilding. He needs to confront his fears and redefine his purpose because, in the end, this journey is not just about unveiling dark secrets, but about finding the strength to overcome the past and rise up, fighting for a future where truth and justice prevail. Mateo felt increasingly overwhelmed as he delved into the investigation of Isabella's death. The streets of San Cristobal, which once seemed welcoming, now felt like a trap full of secrets. He couldn't ignore the fact that the city, with its tranquil beauty, hid a dark side that both attracted and repelled him at the same time. The image of Pirata, Isabella's loyal dog, running by his side while howling in anguish, became a constant reminder that something was very wrong. The first challenge Mateo faced arose when he decided to speak with Father Ignacio. The priest, who had once been a close friend of Isabella, seemed hesitant when discussing her death. He avoided Mateo's questions, his eyes drifting to the ground, as if he feared that the truth might be revealed. Frustration grew within Mateo. He wanted answers, but uncertainty and distrust surrounded him like a thick fog. What did the father have to hide? What could be so terrifying that it prevented him from speaking? After the frustrating encounter, Mateo found himself in a dead end. He already knew that Isabella was involved in various social causes, but now he needed to find a way to connect the dots. He bought a notebook and began jotting down everything he knew about her life. With each page, he felt the pressure mounting. The need to seek justice for Isabella became almost palpable. However, the pressure also triggered his insecurities. He remembered his previous life, the failures that had led him to seek refuge in San Cristobal. The thought of failing again tormented him. Mateo then decided to seek out other friends and collaborators of Isabella, hoping to find clues that would lead him to the truth. During his conversations, he met Luciana, a young activist who worked on the same cause as Isabella. Luciana was passionate and determined, but she also carried her own scars. She had lost her family in a conflict related to land issues and, like Mateo, sought justice. The connection between them was immediate, and together they began to explore the possible links between Isabella's death and the threats she had faced. However, Mateo's life became even more complicated when he discovered that he was being followed. A mysterious man, who seemed to always be behind him, watched him from a distance. With every step Mateo took toward the truth, a new shadow emerged, threatening not only his investigation but also his safety. Fear began to infiltrate his mind. He was willing to risk everything for Isabella, but how far would that desire take him? The friendship between Mateo and Luciana began to blossom, but it was soon tested. In one of their investigations, Mateo shared a lead he had found in an old letter from Isabella. Luciana became visibly distressed upon reading the fragments that mentioned corrupt practices in the community. She didn't want to believe that close people could be involved in something so dirty. The tension between them increased, and Mateo found himself questioning whether Luciana could be an ally, or if, at some point, she would become an obstacle in his search. With each new discovery, the emotional burden on Mateo grew. He remembered the nights he would wake up in a panic, reliving past mistakes. Now he felt that not only his life was at stake, but also Luciana's and possibly many others. The struggle for the truth transformed into an internal battle, where he would have to decide whether to move forward, despite the potentially devastating consequences, or to step back and protect those he cared about. Mateo realized that his search was not just about solving a mystery, it was a journey toward redemption, to prove to himself that he still had worth. The pain of losing Isabella became fuel, but at the same time, he needed to find a balance between the desire for justice and the need to take care of himself and his new friends. The streets of San Cristobal, once familiar, were now a labyrinth of uncertainties, and the quest for truth would lead him to confront not only the city's secrets, but also the ghosts of his own past. Mateo felt the pressure on his shoulders becoming unbearable. Each day that passed without answers about Isabella's death seemed like a heavier weight to bear. The nights were long and filled with insomnia, and he found himself reliving the moments when he sat beside her, laughing and talking about dreams and hopes. Now, all that remained were unanswered questions and a sense of emptiness that consumed him. His determination to uncover the truth was increasingly becoming a thorny path. His friendship with Luciana became a valuable support but also a source of tension. One afternoon, while reviewing the documents Isabella had left behind, a heated argument broke out. Luciana, upon seeing the letter that revealed corrupt practices, began to doubt. Mateo, you can't just accuse people without concrete evidence. What if you're wrong? What if this ends up putting you and all of us in danger? Luciana's words echoed in Mateo's mind, and he felt the weight of responsibility. He didn't want to risk their safety, but he also knew that the truth needed to be revealed. The tension between them grew, and Mateo began to feel isolated. The fear of losing Luciana, just as he had lost Isabella, tormented him. He knew he needed to open up, to share his insecurities, but the words felt trapped in his throat. The thought of being misunderstood paralyzed him, and he found himself caught in a cycle of reflection, questioning whether his quest for justice was turning into an obsession that could drive him away from those who truly cared. Meanwhile, the mysterious man who had been following him continued to appear in unexpected places. On a rainy day, while walking through the central square, Mateo felt a chill as he sensed the familiar shadow a few meters away. The man seemed to blend in with the crowd, but his eyes never left Mateo. That feeling of being watched left him uneasy, and he began to avoid the places he used to frequent. Fear started to infiltrate his daily life, even affecting his ability to concentrate on the investigations. The search for allies was becoming increasingly complicated. Matteo decided to seek out other acquaintances of Isabella, but each conversation seemed to lead to more questions than answers. A former colleague of Isabella, when questioned about her death, immediately changed the subject, his eyes filled with fear. "Sometimes, it's better not to know," he said, while Matteo tasted the bitter flavor of frustration. He was surrounded by people who seemed to know more than they were willing to reveal. That city, which once seemed so alive, was now turning into a maze of secrets and lies, where every corner could hide a new obstacle. With each new failure, Matteo's confidence in himself diminished. He remembered moments when he had promised Isabella that he would never give up. But now, he wondered if he truly had the strength to carry on. The memories of the past haunted him, and he found himself battling his own demons. The thought of failing again, of not being able to solve the mystery surrounding his friend's death, was a constant shadow in his mind. It was in one of those moments of desperation that Luciana decided to confront him. "Matteo, you need to stop punishing yourself for something you can't control. If you keep this up, you'll lose yourself along the way." Luciana's words echoed in his mind, making him reflect on his own limitations. Would he really be able to bear that weight alone? The friendship he was forming with Luciana could be the key to helping him face his fears and insecurities. The emotional tension between them culminated on a stormy night, where they found themselves in an empty cafe, their voices raised in a heated exchange. "I can't be dragged into this pointless quest. Matteo, what if this ends up destroying us?" Luciana shouted, her eyes shining with a mix of anger and concern. Her pain was palpable, and Matteo felt guilty for involving someone so close in his own internal storm. However, seeing Luciana's fragility, Matteo realized he was not alone. They were two human beings fighting against a corrupt and oppressive system, and the strength of each could be the light needed to illuminate the path. He took a deep breath and decided that he needed to find a balance between his quest for justice and the protection of his new friend. The road ahead was uncertain, but with Luciana by his side, there was hope that they could face the challenges to come together. Matteo knew that the journey wouldn't be easy. However, he began to realize that true overcoming was not just about finding answers, but about learning to trust, to open up, and to accept that sometimes the truth can be more powerful when shared. The city of San Cristobal still hid many secrets, but now he had someone to share that weight with. And this new friendship could be the key to unraveling the mysteries surrounding Isabella's death, even if the path was fraught with danger. Matteo was in a moment of deep introspection when, suddenly, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He hesitated before looking at the screen. It was an anonymous message, with no identification. His heart raced. With trembling fingers, he opened the message, which read only, "I know what happened to Isabella. Meet me at the old warehouse at midnight." Adrenaline surged through his body. Anxiety and hope intertwined within him, creating a whirlwind of emotions. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for, but the thought of meeting a stranger in an isolated place left him uneasy. He glanced at Luciana, who was lost in thought, and decided he couldn't risk bringing someone he cared about into that situation. When night fell, the city was wrapped in an oppressive silence. Matteo walked toward the warehouse, his insecurities accompanying him with every step. The place was a shadow of what it once was, with broken windows and doors creaking in the wind. He felt a mix of fear and determination. The truth he sought could be just steps away, but what if that meant more danger? Upon entering, the moonlight illuminated the ruined room, casting shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. Matteo stood still, listening. The silence was deep, but soon he heard cautious footsteps. A man appeared from the shadows, his face hidden by darkness. "You came," the man said, in a low, grave voice. "Who are you? What do you know about Isabella?" Matteo asked, trying to keep firmness in his voice, though his heart was pounding. The man smiled, but there was no joy in his gaze. I knew Isabella. She was getting into something very dangerous, and you're on the same path, kid. If you're not careful, you could end up like her. The man's words cut through Matteo like a knife. What did he mean? The idea that Isabella's death could be more than an accident, that there was something bigger at play, forced him to face the bitter reality that his quest could not only put him in danger, but also those he loved. Why would you warn me? What do you gain from this? Matteo challenged, anger beginning to rise behind his anxiety. Because I don't want another death in my hands. The truth is a burden, and you're not ready to carry it alone. I can help you, but you need to understand that the corruption Isabella uncovered isn't something that can be resolved with bravery. Matteo felt the ground opening beneath his feet. He was so focused on seeking justice for Isabella that he hadn't considered the consequences. He realized that his determination might be turning into recklessness. The weight of past failures began to accumulate over him. He had promised Isabella that he would never give up. But now he wondered if he was truly ready for the challenges that lay ahead. So, what do you suggest? Matteo asked, his voice now calmer, but filled with uncertainty. Stop acting on your own. Gather information, make connections, but be careful. There are powerful people behind this, and they won't hesitate to silence anyone who gets in their way, the man warned. The conversation weighed on Matteo like a storm about to break. He was certain he wanted to know the truth, but the idea that he could become a target made him reconsider his choices. He was on a dangerous path, and maybe he didn't have the strength to fight against such great forces. As he left the warehouse, the revelation hit him like a punch in the stomach. He had let himself be carried away by anger and the need for justice without considering what was truly at stake. The friendship he was cultivating with Luciana was becoming even more important, but he feared dragging her into that whirlwind. Matteo realized he needed to change his approach. He couldn't keep acting alone, but he also couldn't risk the safety of those he loved. He decided he had to talk to Luciana, who had become his confidant, and together they could find a way to unravel the truth without putting themselves in danger. That night would become a milestone in his journey. The pressure on his shoulders still existed, but now he was no longer alone. The burden could be shared, and that could be the first step to discovering what really happened to Isabella. It was time to restart, to reconsider his decisions, and above all, to understand that the search for truth didn't have to be a solitary struggle. Matteo left the warehouse feeling the weight of the conversation with the mysterious man on his shoulders. The moon still shone brightly, but the light seemed no longer to bring comfort. The truth he sought was closer, but now it also felt more dangerous. The idea of putting Luciana at risk tormented him, and he knew he needed to be careful. As he walked through the deserted streets, his mind was in a whirlwind. He thought of Isabella, the friendship they had, and the promises he had made to her. It was hard to accept that the pursuit of justice could become a trap. He clenched his fists, trying to dispel the frustration that was growing inside him. What should he do now? When he arrived home, Matteo found Luciana sitting at the kitchen table, the soft light of the lamp illuminating her worried face. She looked at him expectantly, as if she already knew something had changed. What happened? You look pale, she asked, her eyes filled with concern. Matteo took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I went to the warehouse. I went to find out who sent me the message, and he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. Luciana straightened in her chair, her attention intensifying. And, what did you discover? He hesitated, remembering the man's words. He said Isabella was involved in something dangerous, and that I am too. I can't keep acting on my own. I need your help, but I don't want you to get hurt. Luciana's expression changed, a mix of concern and determination. Matteo, you can't do this alone. I want to help. I won't just stand by while you put yourself in danger. Her insistence touched him deeply. He knew she wasn't going to back down, but the fear of losing her consumed him. "I don't know what we'll face. There are powerful people involved, and they can hurt both of us," he said, anguish transparent in his voice. Luciana approached, placing her hand over his. "I trust you, but I also trust myself. Together, we can find a way to uncover the truth and keep ourselves safe." Luciana's determination was a balm for his insecurities. They spent hours talking, outlining a plan that would help them investigate the situation without exposing themselves too much. Matteo felt a little lighter, but the weight of responsibility was still there. He knew the journey would be filled with challenges. In the following days, Matteo and Luciana began to move silently, seeking information about Isabella and the people around her. They visited places she used to frequent, spoke with mutual friends, and tried to piece together the puzzle. With each new piece of information, the tension grew. They felt like detectives, but the reality was much darker than any mystery they could have imagined. One night, while reviewing notes at home, Matteo felt a chill as he realized someone was watching them. He stopped writing and looked out the window. A shadow moved in the darkness, and his heart raced. "Luciana, did you see that?" he whispered, trying to remain calm. She looked up, worried. "What was it?" "It seems like we are being followed." "We can't be careless," he said, anxiety tightening his chest. The atmosphere between them changed. That sense of security they had built together now felt fragile. They decided to close the curtains and avoid going out at night, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. Matteo felt constantly on edge, fearing that at any moment they could be confronted by someone who didn't want them to uncover the truth. In the following days, Matteo began to question his own abilities. He wasn't an investigator, and the thought of facing dangerous people left him paralyzed. But Luciana was by his side, always ready to encourage him. "Remember what Isabella meant to you. That should give you strength," she said, and Matteo tried to hold on to those words. On the other hand, the emotional pressure was starting to take its toll on them. Sleepless nights and constant worry were wearing Matteo down. He felt guilty for putting Luciana in this situation. "You shouldn't be here. I can't sleep. I can't think clearly. This is too dangerous," he vented one night, frustration spilling over. "And you think I'm going to let you go through this alone? I'm not just someone here to support you. I also want to know the truth." "We're in this together," Luciana replied, her voice firm. Her strength was a reminder that they weren't alone, but the reality of what they faced weighed on them like a dark cloud. Matteo knew that although they had taken an important step by joining forces, there was still much to confront and many dangers ahead. The path to the truth was perilous, but now he had a partner by his side, and that was a comfort amidst the chaos approaching. Matteo looked out the window, shadows dancing under the moonlight, and felt his heart racing. In recent days, life had become a series of tough decisions and moments of tension. The weight of responsibility felt greater with each step he took. He remembered how it all had started, an anonymous message, a search for justice, and finally the discovery that Isabella was in danger. But along this journey, he had also found Luciana, a friend who had become his ally, and that made him realize he was not alone. The idea of facing dangers and uncertainties paralyzed him. He saw himself as an ordinary young man, without special skills or training. But Luciana, with her determination, was a beacon in the darkness. Every time she encouraged him to move forward, Matteo felt a spark of courage within himself. He began to realize that strength wasn't just about being fearless, but in choosing to act, even when fear consumed him. One night, while reviewing their notes, something changed within Matteo. He remembered how he had promised Isabella that he would protect her, and that made him reflect. He had let fear and insecurity take over, but now he had the chance to be the friend she needed. He looked at Luciana, who was focused on her writing, and decided that he could no longer doubt. He needed to confront his own demons. "Let's go to that bar where Isabella used to go. Maybe someone there knows something," Matteo said, his voice more firm. Luciana looked up, surprised, but also excited. You're right. We need to act, she replied, a smile forming on her face. Her determination inspired him to move forward. That night, they went to the bar. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and music, but Matteo felt his heart heavy. He knew that seeking answers could open doors that should remain closed. But with Luciana by his side, he felt stronger. They spoke with a few acquaintances of Isabella, and although the information was scarce, every little detail they managed to gather was a piece of the puzzle they needed to put together. As the days passed, the tension grew. They felt watched, but they were also beginning to develop skills they didn't know they possessed. Matteo started to notice changes in himself. He was becoming more confident, learning to listen to his intuition and make quick decisions. With each risk they took, he felt stronger, closer to who he really was. One morning, upon waking up, Matteo looked at his reflection in the mirror and realized that there was a different light in his eyes. He was no longer the boy who felt incapable of facing life's challenges. He was transforming into someone who fought for those he loved, and that motivated him to keep going, even when darkness seemed to swallow everything around him. Over time, Matteo realized that true wealth was not in the answers they sought, but in the friendships that were forming. His relationship with Luciana grew stronger each day. They laughed together, shared fears and hopes, and that united them. He understood that true strength lay in having someone by his side, someone who understood and supported him. As they investigated, Matteo began to apply the lessons he was learning. He learned to be more observant, to listen attentively, and to open himself to new perspectives. Every conversation, every challenge overcome, was an opportunity for growth. He began to understand that life was made of ups and downs, and that every difficulty brought with it a valuable lesson. One day, after a difficult conversation about what they had discovered, Matteo looked at Luciana and said, "I don't know what we would do without you. Thank you for being here." Luciana smiled, her gaze filled with understanding. "You are strong too, Matteo. Sometimes, we just need someone to believe in us to see our true potential." Those words resonated within him. Matteo finally understood that what he was experiencing was not just a struggle for justice, but a journey of self-discovery and growth. He had faced his fears, accepted Luciana's help, and learned to trust himself. And although the road ahead was still uncertain, he knew he was ready to face whatever came his way, with courage and determination. Matteo and Luciana were in the small room of an abandoned warehouse, where they had discovered that Isabella might be held. The place was dark, with only a few beams of light filtering through the broken windows. Matteo's heart raced, and adrenaline coursed through his body. This was the moment he had feared, but also the one he had prepared to face. "Matteo, are you sure you want to do this?" Luciana asked, her voice low and careful. He could see the concern in her eyes, but also the strength that emanated from her. It was a strength that encouraged him to move forward. He nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yes, I need to. Isabella needs me." As they cautiously moved through the warehouse, Matteo felt the weight of his choices. He had failed to protect Isabella before, and that failure followed him like a shadow. But now, he was determined to correct that. They approached a rusty door, and Matteo paused for a moment to listen. Muffled noises came from inside. He exchanged a glance with Luciana and, without further hesitation, pushed the door open. The scene that unfolded before them was terrifying. Isabella was tied to a chair, with a look of fear and hope in her eyes. But what truly made Matteo's heart freeze was the imposing figure standing beside her. A tall man, with a cold and determined look, who seemed to be responsible for the whole situation. "You shouldn't have come here, kid," the man said, his deep voice resonating in the room. Matteo felt fear trying to take over him, but he remembered the strength he had found within himself and in his friendship with Luciana. He couldn't back down now. Let her go. Matteo shouted, his voice firmer than he imagined. The man laughed, a sound that chilled Matteo's blood. And what will you do if I don't let her go? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Luciana, beside him, pulled Matteo by the hand. We need a plan, she whispered. But at that moment, the only thing Matteo could think of was Isabella and the fear she was feeling. He couldn't allow another person he loved to suffer because of his hesitations. I'm not afraid of you, Matteo declared, stepping forward. I'm going to take Isabella away from here, and you can't stop me. The man looked at him, surprise quickly turning to anger. Do you really think you can do that? He advanced, but Matteo was ready. Remembering the lessons he had learned, he positioned himself between Luciana and the man, ready to defend his friend. You're not going to hurt anyone. I won't let you. With a quick move, the man tried to grab him, but Matteo dodged, his mind now clear and focused. He realized that not only Isabella's life was at stake, but also his own. He had to act, not just for her, but for himself. Luciana now, Matteo shouted, and she, without hesitation, grabbed an object from a nearby table and threw it at the man, distracting him for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Matteo rushed toward Isabella, cutting her bonds with a piece of glass he found on the floor. Matteo, Isabella exclaimed, her eyes shining with gratitude and relief. You came. Yes, and now we're getting out of here. He helped her to her feet, and Luciana was by her side, ready to guide them toward the exit. But the man was not willing to let them escape. He lunged in their direction, but Matteo, now more confident, felt the strength he had cultivated. He turned and, with a swift move, shoved the man against the wall, using all the energy he had. The struggle was intense, but Matteo's determination guided him. He was no longer just fighting for Isabella, but for his own freedom. With one last effort, he managed to bring the man down, who collapsed on the floor, too weak to continue. Let's go, Luciana shouted, pulling Matteo and Isabella out of the warehouse. As soon as they crossed the door, the moonlight enveloped them, and the feeling of freedom was palpable. They ran to the car they had left hidden nearby, and Matteo felt a huge weight lift off his shoulders. As they drove, adrenaline still coursed through their veins. Isabella, now free, looked at Matteo and Luciana. Thank you for saving me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come. Matteo smiled, feeling the connection between them stronger than ever. We're friends, and friends always help each other. In that moment, he realized that the true victory was in the friendship that had solidified throughout the entire journey. They had faced their fears, overcome challenges, and finally found the strength within themselves. Matteo knew that life would still bring challenges, but now he was ready to face them. He had learned that with love and friendship, he could overcome any obstacle. And as he looked toward the future, he felt prepared for any adventure that might come, alongside Luciana and Isabella. Matteo drove through the dark streets, the car's engine softly roaring as the adrenaline began to subside. Beside him, Isabella was recovering from the shock, her breathing still rapid. Luciana, in the back seat, watched the two of them with a relieved smile on her face. Although they still felt the echoes of tension, the sensation of freedom enveloped them like a warm blanket. I can't believe we did it, Isabella finally said, breaking the silence. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. I thought I would never get out of that place. Matteo looked at her, feeling a knot unravel in his chest. We weren't going to leave you behind. Never. The memory of the fear he had seen in Isabella's eyes sent a chill down his spine. He had promised himself never to leave someone he loved in danger again. And you were incredible, Matteo, Luciana exclaimed from the back seat. You faced that man as if you were fighting a ghost. I've never seen anyone act with such courage. Matteo smiled shyly, but the truth was that he was still processing everything. The courage he had felt was not just his. It was a mix of the strength that Isabella and Luciana gave him. I couldn't have done it without you. This fight was for all of us. As he drove, he reflected on what he had learned. The struggle wasn't just a physical battle. It was a test of character, of friendship, and of love. He had freed himself from a burden, not only rescuing Isabella, but also confronting his own fears. The thought of failing again haunted him. But now he knew he could count on others. And now, what will we do? Isabella asked, breaking into his thoughts. We still have to deal with what happened. He might come back. Matteo felt a coldness in his stomach at the thought. Yes, we need to inform the police. We can't let him do this to anyone else. The determination in his voice was clear. He had to make sure that no one else went through what Isabella had experienced. Luciana nodded. And we'll be in this together. No matter what happens, we're not alone. The confidence in her words was contagious and brought new energy to Matteo. When they arrived at the police station, a wave of nervousness washed over him again. He knew he had to tell everything, but the fear of reliving those dark moments was almost overwhelming. But as soon as they entered and began to recount what had happened, he realized he wasn't alone. Isabella and Luciana were by his side, and that made all the difference. After their statement, they sat on a bench in the waiting room. The fluorescent lights flickered above them, but despite the coldness of the environment, Matteo felt warmth from the presence of his friends. He knew that regardless of what happened, they would still have each other. You know this doesn't end here. Right? Isabella began, looking at both of them. We'll still need support, not just from the police but from everyone. We need to lift each other up. Yes, and we will, Luciana asserted, squeezing Isabella's hand tightly. We'll find a way to move forward. Matteo nodded, feeling a new purpose forming within him. We won't let fear control our lives. We're going to live and enjoy every moment. That's what Isabella deserves now. The three exchanged smiles, and Matteo realized how that experience had bonded them in a way that nothing else could. They had faced danger and come out on the other side, stronger and more connected. As the police dealt with the situation concerning the man who had threatened Isabella, Matteo looked out the window of the station. The night was beginning to lighten, and he saw the stars shining in the sky. He smiled, knowing that life still had much to offer. Let's go home, he said, determined. And from now on, we're going to enjoy life. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Isabella and Luciana nodded, and together they left the police station, ready to face the future that awaited them. The friendship they had cultivated had become a fortress, a safe place they could always return to. With that, Matteo felt that he was finally at peace with himself. Matteo and his friend stepped out of the precinct, feeling the weight of recent experiences, but also the lightness of newfound freedom. The night had been long and filled with challenges, but now, at dawn, there was a sense of renewal in the air. The sunlight began to break through the darkness, and with it, hope was reborn. Matteo looked at Isabella and Luciana, realizing how the journey had changed not only their lives but also his own. He had once lived with fears that paralyzed him, but now he felt an inner strength he didn't know he possessed. The courage he had found in facing danger was not just a reflection of an extreme moment, but something he could carry with him forever. As they walked together, Matteo reflected on what it truly meant to live. What had once seemed like an endless routine had transformed into a call to action. He realized that success was not just about external conquests, but above all, about the connections we make along the way. The bonds he had cultivated with Isabella and Luciana were the true victories of his life, experiences that shaped him and propelled him forward. I learned something important from all this, Matteo said, his voice firm. Life is precious and fragile. We need to make the most of every moment and take care of each other. Friendship is what gives us strength, and we must always value it. Isabella nodded, understanding the depth of his words. And when we face difficulties, it's the unity that helps us overcome. We are stronger together. Luciana, with a smile on her face, added, we must never let fear control us again. Confrontation brings growth, and that's something we can never forget. The trio committed to being present in each other's lives, not only in difficult times, but also in the small joys of everyday life. They knew the journey was far from over, but they were ready for any challenge that came their way. As they walked away from the precinct and strolled through the sunlit streets, Matteo felt a transformation within himself. He had faced his fears, and instead of being consumed by them, he emerged stronger. The illusion that he was powerless against challenges faded, revealing the truth that the strength had been within him all along. Matteo looked up at the blue sky, now free from the darkness of the previous night. He felt that life was full of possibilities, and that he was finally ready to embrace each one of them. Matteo's journey of overcoming and self-discovery was not just about rescuing a friend, but about rediscovering himself and understanding that life is made of connections and moments that shape who we are. He had learned that every experience, good or bad, brings valuable lessons. Now, he invited everyone to reflect on their own journeys. If you have faced difficulties, know that there is always a path ahead. Don't be afraid to seek support and live fully. Share your stories and experiences in the comments. Together, we will build a community of strength and resilience. Liking and subscribing to the channel helps us bring more inspiring content. Don't wait any longer. Start your own journey of transformation now. With this, Matteo and his friends not only prepared for what was to come, but also became beacons of hope and courage for those around them, ready to light the way for others who needed support and encouragement. What moment impacted you the most in this story? Was it when Pirate, the loyal dog, alerted everyone during the funeral, or when Matteo risked everything to uncover the hidden truth in San Cristobal de las Casas? We want to hear what you think, so leave your comment below and share your reflections with us. Your opinion is essential for us to bring even more stories filled with suspense, mystery, and excitement. If you know someone who would love to follow this investigation full of unexpected twists, share this video with them. Together, let's spread stories that inspire and touch the heart, revealing the darkest and most unexpected secrets. And if you are looking for more exciting and intriguing narratives, with memorable characters and surprising mysteries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll be the first to know when we launch new videos that promise to take you on new adventures filled with tension and revelations. Thank you for watching, and until the next story that will leave you on the edge of your seat.